What are you doing? I'm gonna check this thing. I let it dry overnight. I think that might work. You see how I ran the glue down. You know, it was cracked right at the base here. So this sensor pedestal here, and this is just a cover. The electronics are underneath this. It's just a tiny little pickup sensor. And then this black plastic here is a cover. And it had cracked clean off right at the base here. A little bit jagged, so I had to line it up to exactly where it cracked so that it was sitting flush. And then I ran the glue. I went all around it and let it run down and kind of just puddle at the bottom there. This is just Gorilla Glue that I just happened to have on hand, a little squeeze bottle. And I'm gonna bolt this thing back up today and gonna see if it still works, still functions. I'm guessing it probably should. I didn't see any damage to the electronics, but I should have trimmed off that little, you know, that you can see where it rubbed against the rotor and kind of shaved the plastic a little. And I should have trimmed that before I glued it back together, because now I don't want to be like manhandling it. You know what I'll do? I'll get a really sharp razor blade and just slice that little flash off right there. Any of you that worked in plastics injection molding, you know what flash is. Even though that's not really flash, it kind of looks like it. It's just a little tail from where it rubbed. But I'm going to attach this back up. Goes right down here. This is the bracket for it. So it's bolted to the caliper mount, and then this screw is what actually holds this to the bracket. So it's a little bit adjustable, but I had it working. When I first put the bike together, it wasn't working. It wasn't picking up. That's the magnet right there. So it has to get really close to that as the magnet goes past. And it has to be pretty close, but I did have it functioning fine just after a little bit of adjustment when I first put the bike together. So we're gonna get this bolted up there, and well, had to do this all over. You know, I glued the sensor back together, but the hole that it goes through in its bracket is so precision that I couldn't get the sensor back through the bracket hole because of the glue, which I didn't even think of when I first put this back together and glued it up. And just trying to get it down through the hole and putting pressure on it, and I knew it was going to happen, the glue job failed. So I got all the glue off. I put it through the hole in the bracket, the back side, then the sensor cap from this side, got it lined up to where it matched its brake, and then glued it. So it's all screwed into the bracket and mounted flush just like it needs to be. I put the sensor cover back on, ran glue down it again. So now this is try number 2. It's got a nice waterfall of glue that ran all down it. And it was glued very well. Like, if I didn't have to put that pressure on it to put it back through the bracket, it would have worked. That glue worked really well. So now I'm going to leave this all day today and through the night tonight. And then tomorrow I'll be able to come out and just bolt the bracket back to the brake caliper mount down here. And I think it's going to work. I think that I don't need to replace this. And, you know, my concern was that if it fails while riding, it's going to rip the sensor apart. So I won't be in any worse shape than I already am because that sensor comes with the whole wire. So the second time gluing it, looks like it worked. That glue takes a long time. I glued it, you know, midday yesterday. It sat all day, all the way overnight, through to this morning. It's dry to the touch, but where the thickest parts were, like where there was a big fat drip, I had to scrape some of that off, and it was still wet underneath. So it still needs to harden up some more. I'm gonna let this dry one more day before I ride it around. I gotta mix up some gas. I just noticed I'm out of gas. I mean, I can barely see any in here. You probably can't even pick it up. So I started it this morning I haven't run it in like 5 days. So I started it this morning, and I had to put it on reserve. So I have 1.5 gallons that I picked up the other day. So I got to mix some oil in there, the 2-stroke premix, and then dump it in here. And then tomorrow we'll take her for a rip, and we should have speed and miles per hour. So, you know, this was my fault. I broke the thing. I'm glad. If I have to order one, I don't really care. I can't imagine it's going to cost very much. I haven't contacted Gary because I think this is going to work, honestly. But if it doesn't and this thing fails, I'll have to order one.
Are you waking up? Are you waking up? I can't help but notice that you are stuffed right up here against my pillows. It's time to get up, buddy. It's time to get up. Ugh. Oh my goodness! I felt that right through my t-shirt. Okay, let's get up.
I let it sit again overnight. So it's on here nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. Just took the bike for a ride. It is picking it up. which I'm honestly surprised that I don't have to do any adjustment. Like I said before, when I first put the bike together, it took me several tries to get it adjusted just right so that it was picking up the magnet. But this time I just bolted it back in basically. It's because it got a little distorted when it got ripped up. I backed it off a little bit just by tweaking that bracket, and it looked like the bracket may have actually gotten a little bit bent in, because when I mounted it yesterday, the sensor was kind of tilted that way. So I put a couple of pairs of pliers on this bracket and just nudged it a little bit, which brought it back there, but I'm super happy it's working. I ended up not contacting Gary up at GPX Moto. I'm not gonna need one. I don't see this failing, but a couple of you in the comments, you did mention that this seemed a little bit kind of out in the open for a dirt bike, and I don't disagree with you. Now remember, this is a dual sport bike, technically. You know, it's street legal, it's for the road and the dirt, so it's not like an all-out dirt bike. But even saying that, this is a little bit kind of right out in the open for a bike like this that's going to go in the trails. So this came with the bike. This is an optional protector. This is called a rotor guard, and this can be attached. This can be attached up here, and it basically will cover up well, my mistake. It does not cover up. It actually goes on the back side. So that's not going to help. I don't know if there's something else I can come up with, but this is not the answer, unfortunately. And it makes sense. It needs to be up tight to the wheel on the rotor. I'm thinking there's got to be a product out there. You know, not an emergency. Everything is fine. You know, it would take something really grabbing onto that to rip it off from the outside, and it's, you know, it's always possible that it could happen. But if that does get torn off while I'm riding, it's not going to affect the rest of the electrical system. It would just stop the speedometer from working. So not the end of the world, but I'm going to see if there isn't some kind of product that I can find that'll cover that up. But I hope you enjoyed the little bike ride. You can see that the area is quite a bit less crowded, but when I went up there and I met my friend Marshall up there, that area, that's a big gathering. But you know, my thing is more, it's great to have that kind of community, don't get me wrong. That's not what I like to do all the time. It's just, you know, too many people too close together, and it really affects my feeling of like doing whatever I want. You know, the dog barking and all that, and I don't want to be so close to people that Lefty would be barking all the time, and you know, other dogs coming around. So it's great though. You know, I have spent weeks camped in areas like that where there's a whole group of people, and it's a really great sense of community. There's things happening in the evenings, and you come out in the morning and you smell the coffee, and it's really a nice thing to experience. It's just not something I like to do all the time personally. So it was really nice to see that group up there. And, you know, I talked about that feeling of melancholy that I had. Well, that has subsided, and I'll tell you why. Because I said to myself, I don't feel like moving right now and going somewhere else. That feeling I had where I felt like I needed to go and move because everybody else was leaving. But after some days and being here, and you know, there's a lot of people still around here, looking at all the weather in the different areas that I'd like to go, and those areas just, it's still too cold, and I'm totally comfortable here, and the weather here is nice. We've had some really warm days here lately. It got up to the low 80s yesterday, but it's going to dip back down again after today. So I'm good and comfortable here. Just because I you know, I'm able to receive packages here, things that I order, things that y'all send me. It's really easy for me to get those things here. So I'm very settled, very structured, and I'm okay with staying here another few weeks while I wait for the weather to shape up in some other areas that I want to go to. So we're going to be here a little while longer. It's really nice to see that big group down the way there. This is a great time to be here. There's people, but there's not too many. So there's food in the stores. You don't have to wait a long line at the stores. You can get into the gas station when you want to. My shipping service in town, they're not overloaded. So this is a good time right now. It's just a good level of people and rigs here at this time of the year. It's not crazy busy, but there is still a lot of activity. I like it right now. Well, that was a good ride on the bike. I had to put some gas in it. I ran out of gas yesterday, actually. It turns out the markings on the fuel petcock, I was using it on reserve all this time. I thought I was on the full tank setting, but in fact, I had been running it on reserve. And so yesterday I saw it was really low, so I turned it to what I thought was reserve, but it was actually the full tank setting. We rode off down there, turned around, and I ran out of gas. The bike stalled. And that's when I figured out that I had the valve now on the full tank setting, which I thought was reserve. So I flipped it to the other position, which was really reserve, and the bike started back up and got me back down here to camp. But I had picked up gas the last time we were in town, so I mixed up 1.5 gallons yesterday and dumped it in the bike. And now I'm looking at the petcock and I see how the markings are and which pointer is the right side of the little valve there that you turn. So now I understand, and I can run it on the actual full tank setting until I run out of fuel. Then I can put it on reserve. So I learned something yesterday about the bike. Thanks everybody for watching. Everybody take care, be safe. We'll see y'all again really soon. Oh, today is shave day. Right? How come you didn't tell me that my whiskers were so long, Lefty? You gotta tell me that stuff. What? You don't gotta move. Yeah, come over here in the shade. Ate most of his breakfast already.